Hey, what's going on YouTube, and welcome to another Season 7 League of Legends Champion Guide. Today, I'm going to be covering Jungle Sejuani, Fury of the North.
Those who oppose me get gored.
So first, why exactly would you want to play Jungle Sejuani? Well, you are a champion with a very strong engage and an absolute ton of crowd control. This makes her a really solid team fighter and an amazing peeler. You have pretty decent mobility from your Q ability, and you have pretty high damage for a tanky champion. With your passive, you can have some insane tankiness and be very hard to deal with. Now, I couldn't really come up with a big list of cons, but the one I could come up with for sure is that she has weak early game map pressure. Champions like Olaf or Lee Sin or Elise, some of those really good early game junglers can really take tempo in the game before you're even relevant. You seem like a pretty clunky champion that doesn't do too much until you get a couple levels, but when you are level 6, your ganks are pretty damn strong. For your Masteries, you want to go 12 Ferocity and 18 Resolve, grabbing Courage of the Colossus as your Keystone Mastery. As we know, you have some pretty solid crowd controls, and this Mastery is going to be incredibly easy to proc. Even though you're already a very tanky champion, this will make you even tankier, and you're going to be so incredibly hard to bring down. For the rest of your Masteries, you pretty much want to focus on increasing your tankiness as much as possible on the Resolve side, and adding a bit of damage in the Ferocity side. You'll still want to pick up that extra damage in the Ferocity side as opposed to going into Cunning, because of course you are going for ganks, and added damage will help you get some kills. For my runes, I like to go for attack speed reds, armor yellows, a mix of scaling cooldown reduction and scaling magic resist blues, and ability power quints. Sejuani's a champion that's usually only going to get between 20 and 30% CDR from her item build, so I like to get the extra 10% at level 18 from the runes just to make sure I'm capped. We then take the attack speed just so we can clear through the jungle a little bit quicker, and of course it allows you to stack your E a bit quicker as well. The armor and the scaling magic resist are pretty self-explanatory because we are a tanky champion, and of course we want to add some tankiness. And then finally, since we are an AP based champion, I like to pick up those quints of ability power just to do a bit more damage into my ganks, and of course jungle clears. For your first summoner spell, you'll want to grab Flash. It's a great defensive summoner, and although you're a very tanky champion, you can use it throughout the game to save your life. You can even use it offensively and combo it with either your Arctic Assault or your Glacial Prison for an even stronger engage. For your second summoner spell, you'll then have to take Smite. It's a requirement on a jungler since it'll allow you to clear through the jungle, secure objectives like Dragon and Baron, and allow you to buy your Cinderhulk. You'll even be able to use that Smite offensively when you acquire either your Stalker's Blade or your Skirmisher's Saber. These will make your ganks even stronger, which is obviously a fantastic thing to have. Your passive ability is Fury of the North, and it adds both some really nice tankiness and some really nice damage. The first part is called Frost Armor. Sejuani receives Frost Armor if she hasn't taken damage in the last between 15 and 9 seconds, lingering for between 1 and 3 seconds after taking damage from enemy champions. Frost Armor engulfs Bristle and True Ice, becoming immune to slows, and gains 100 plus 100% total armor, bonus armor, and 100 plus 100% total magic resist, bonus magic resist. The second part is Icebreaker, and enemies stunned by Sejuani are frozen. This of course means if she stuns somebody and then hits them, they will be shattered out immediately and not take the full stun duration. However, Sejuani's next basic attack or ability against them deals between 10 and 20% of their maximum health as bonus magic damage or 400 against minions and monsters. So in short, this passive is pretty incredible, and it did get nerfed because it was even more busted beforehand. Still, having all of this bonus armor and magic resist at the start of a team fight or engage will make you a really tanky champion and pretty much impossible to bring down. The second part, Icebreaker, makes you do some really solid damage. Even if you are ganking a really tanky champion, 20% of their max health is a pretty significant amount of damage. Your Q ability is Arctic Assault, and this gives you some really nice mobility and is great for engaging or escaping. When activated, Sejuani signals Bristle to dash forward, dealing magic damage and knocking up for 0.5 seconds all enemies he passes through until the charge ends or upon colliding with an enemy champion. Now this has a 650 range, which is pretty decent, and between a 13 and 11 cooldown, so it's pretty good mobility. Since this is a knock-up, it is of course one of your many CCs and allows you to easily proc Courage of the Colossus. Now although this is a really solid ability, you don't get too much extra by putting points into it, so we want to save this one for last. We'll just want to make sure we take one early point in the ability so we can use it to engage onto the enemy champions, or of course escape if we do need to. Your W ability is Winter's Wrath, and this is really solid for clearing through the jungle and also applying your E's stacks. When activated after a 0.25 second delay, Sejuani swings her flail in a cone in the target direction, dealing physical damage to all enemies hit and knocking back minions and monsters. She then lashes out with her flail after 0.75 seconds in a straight line in the same direction, dealing physical damage and briefly slowing to all enemies hit. Sejuani can move freely during Winter's Wrath, and both swings will strike in the cast direction. So this is obviously really strong in the jungle because it's 2 AoE hits and is really strong against those jungle camps like Razorbeaks. It's also got a 600 range, so although we are a melee champion, we can actually do some damage from range. This ability even does max health damage, so with all these things combined, we have to max this one first because it's easily Sejuani's best damaging ability. Your E ability is Permafrost, and this does some pretty significant damage and also has a scaling stun duration. Passively, Sejuani and nearby melee allied champions' basic attacks apply frost to enemy champions and large monsters, stacking up to 4 times. When activated, Sejuani freezes an enemy champion or large monster, dealing magic damage and stunning them. Once consumed, the target cannot gain frost for between 10 and 8 seconds. This ability will also reset Sejuani's auto attack timer. So this is a really solid ability because it does okay damage, but also has a scaling stun duration which caps out at 2 seconds. Keep in mind, however, whenever you hit this champion with an auto attack, they will break out of the stun, so you don't want to necessarily use it right off the bat. If you need to, make sure you reposition and then auto attack the target. Either way, it is a really solid ability and gives your ganks even more kill potential, so you'll want to max this one second. It's definitely better to max than your Q ability. Last, we have your ultimate, Glacial Prison, which is a really strong CC and also does some pretty significant damage. When activated, Sejuani throws a True Ice Bola in a line, dealing magic damage and stunning for 1 second the first enemy champion that collides with it. The Bola's damage increases the further it travels and can stun up for 2 seconds. The Bola shatters upon collision or reaching maximum range, creating a storm for 2 seconds. At the end of the duration, the storm shatters, dealing damage and slowing by 80% for 3 seconds. So this is an incredibly strong ultimate because first of all, you can stun a target, and second of all, you can do AoE damage to an entire enemy team and slow them by 80% for 3 seconds, which is huge. If you can pull this off, it's going to be incredibly easy for your allied carries to actually kite away from the enemy carries. So in a team fight, you first want to try to get this onto a squishy enemy carry, and second, try to hit multiple enemies with it. For your skill order, you first want to put a point into your ultimate whenever you can at 6, 11, and 16. Then you'll want to max your W ability first because it does some really solid AoE damage and is great for clearing through the jungle and doing max health damage to champions. You'll then want to follow it up with your E ability because it has a scaling stun duration and makes your ganks much more effective. We'll then want to save our Q ability for last. We just want to take one early point in it at level 3 to use it as an engage or escape. Now in most cases I will start with my W ability because I like to start at the Razorbeaks, but if you're starting on a single jungle camp, then you could start with your E ability as well. For your normal combo, you first want to close a gap on a target with your Q ability and instantly follow it up with your W ability to do your damage. Follow up with autos until you have 4 stacks, then activate your E ability to stun the target and follow up with another auto to use that passive's damage. Then all you have to do here is auto attack until you can use your W for additional damage, and if you do need to, use your Q ability for mobility. For your main all-in combo, you first start by landing your ultimate on the enemy champion. While they're still stunned, use your W ability to hit them with both portions of that ability, and then follow up with your Q if you do need to. On Sejuani, you have 2 main jungle routes, but my favorite one is going Raptors and Red Buff. This jungle clear is becoming pretty popular since you gain a lot of experience right off the bat. You want to make sure you grab Winter's Wrath at level 1 since it's really strong against multiple monsters and will allow you to kill those Raptors pretty easily. After you finish with the Red Buff, you want to proceed with Wolves, Blue Buff, and Gromp. Starting on the blue buff side is also very viable if you prefer getting the blue buff first. You'll want to do the following order: blue buff, wolves, and red buff. This will allow you to get off a really quick level 3 gank with your double buff, so if you're looking to gank early on, then you may want to start with that clear. When ganking before level 6, you want to try to sweep in behind the enemy and apply your stacks of Winter's Wrath. When you have 4 stacks, you can use your Permafrost to deal a nice chunk of damage and stun the target. I'd also recommend to try to save your Arctic Assault for when the enemy uses an escape ability or flashes away, but if you need to, you can also use it to close a gap at the start. When you're level 6, you'll generally want to use your Glacial Prison at the start for its burst damage and its stun. This can give you more than enough time to close a gap on a target, so you can save your Arctic Assault in case they do have flash. If however you know that flash is down, then you may as well just open with it instead. In teamfights, you'll first want to try to land your Glacial Prison on an enemy carry. If possible, try to get it in the middle of the enemy team so you can slow multiple enemies and do a nice chunk of damage. An 80% slow for 3 seconds can make kiting for your carries incredibly easy. For anybody with diving abilities, it's also going to be incredibly easy to get onto the backline and deal with the enemy. You'll then want to make sure you use your other abilities to peel for your carries whenever you need to. You can provide them with a ton of crowd control, which can keep them really safe and allow them to do their damage. Other than that, you'll just want to try to soak as much damage as possible and keep your allies rather healthy. So now let's look at a couple hard matchups, and first up is Ivern. Ivern's incredibly annoying to play against because he's going to be able to go into your jungle and steal camps over and over again. If you end up finding him in your own jungle, he's pretty safe because he can just snare you and run away. In teamfights, although you are a very strong team fighter, you're still not an Ivern. With his item build and his kit, he can provide so much for his team, and even if you do get a good engage, he can usually keep them rather safe with both a locket and a redemption. Try to keep vision of him and don't let him counter gank you. Next here I have Lee Sin, who's a very good early game jungler and can put out a ton of map pressure before you can do much. Try your best to avoid him in 1v1s early on because usually he's going to destroy you. You definitely outscale Lee Sin and you're a much better team fighter, so try to make it to the mid and late game. As long as you can make it through the early game without him snowballing lanes, you'll be completely fine, so that's all you have to focus on doing. Next here we have Nunu, who's another champion that can put out a ton of early map pressure and can also steal jungle camps from you. Make sure you keep your jungle warded at all times, because he will try to counter jungle you, and hopefully you can collapse on him in your own jungle. You'll also want to try to keep track of wherever he is, and if he goes for a gank, try to counter gank him. His perma-slow ganks are pretty strong, but if you can sweep in behind and start stunning people, you're going to have a pretty good time. You're also a much better team fighter, so try to get to team fights and then start winning from there. And last here we have Shaco, who's another good early game jungler that can put out a ton of pressure, yet meet you in your own jungle and also 1v1 the absolute shit out of you. Against Shaco, you're going to have to try to keep track of where he is at all times, but this is going to be pretty hard because of his stealth, but make sure you get up some wards. You're definitely a much better team fighter than Shaco when he does fall off in the late game, so you just want to make it to the mid and late game and then fight him there. Now let's cover your item build, which starts with a Hunter's Talisman, Refillable Potion, and a Warding Totem. Then for your core build, you're going to want to get a jungler item enchanted with Cinderhulk, an Iceborne Gauntlet, and a Gargoyle Stoneplate. The Cinderhulk is going to give you a really nice health pool with a burn that's great for clearing through the jungle and split pushing, and the Iceborne Gauntlet's going to give you 20% CDR, some really nice tankiness, and also increase your damage at the same time. We'll then want to get the Gargoyle Stoneplate because it's really solid tankiness with the armor and the magic resist it does provide, and of course the activation. You're going to have a pretty solid health pool, and when you activate this item, you're basically going to be unkillable. After you jump into a team fight and use all of your abilities, you can use this to soak a bunch of damage, and after it does end, your abilities are going to be off cooldown, and you can follow up with more damage. For your boot options, you have Ninja Tabis against high AD teams, Merc Treads against AP and CC heavy teams, and Boots and Mobility if you want all-around mobility and quicker ganks. For your item pool, we first have the new Abyssal Scepter. This is a really solid item that'll increase your tankiness and allow you to do 10% more damage. As long as there is some magic-based champions on the enemy team, I'll usually pick up this item. Two other really solid options for magic resist though would be the Spirit Visage and the Adaptive Helm. If you're planning to go for something like a Warmogs and you want to make really good use of the healing, then the Spirit Visage would be a fantastic buy. If you're then against champions that spam the same ability over and over again, like a Rumble or a Cassiopeia or a Rise, then Adaptive Helm is a fantastic pickup. It's going to reduce the damage you take by 15%. If you instead need some more armor, you could get Deadman's Plate, Randuin's, or Thornmail. Deadman's Plate is great if you want extra mobility, Randuin's is fantastic against high crit champions like Yasuo, and Thornmail is great against high AD teams so you can reflect some damage. And finally, if you just want a really high health pool and some good regeneration, you could get the Warmogs. Since this item has a really large health pool, it also works fantastic with a Gargoyle Stoneplate, and when you activate it, you're going to be an absolute monster. For my example full build though, I take that core build, Ninja Tabis, and then an Abyssal Scepter, and Deadman's Plate. You're going to be an incredibly tanky champion that's very hard to bring down, yet you're going to still have some pretty decent damage from the Cinderhulk, the Iceborne Gauntlet, and the Abyssal Scepter. But that is everything I've got for Jungle Sejuani. Don't forget to check out the video description below for a link to all my social medias. I stream every night but Tuesday at 7 PM Eastern now, and of course that link is down there. As is my Discord server and my second YouTube channel. Also, if you guys did enjoy the video, please make sure you like and subscribe, but other than that, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys did enjoy it, and I will see you in the next one. Take it easy, have a good day, and peace.
Going